Being born in the 90s is strange because I don't feel like I'm that old, but anytime I make a reference to a game or console that existed in the 2010s even, grown adults look at me like I'm crazy. And yeah, maybe I am crazy, but at least I'm on theme. Either way, I just think it's weird that a lot of you guys watching this probably don't know what a Game Boy SP is, because even Silverwolf is aware of the games that I grew up with, and she's gotta be like 14 years old. Anyways, in today's video, I'm gonna be teaching you how to use Pac-Man and a diamond sword to delete God. My name is Braxophone, but you can call me Brax, and let's talk about Silverwolf level 999. Can we shorten that? There are certainly a lot of things I had on my bingo card, but I will be honest, Silverwolf getting to become a top DPS was not one of them. But I guess anything's possible when you're playing a literal acid trip of a game. Silverwolf level 999, or as I like to call her, Super Wolf, plays entirely around using her ultimate to enter an enhanced state and add a significant amount of damage to the board. If you're playing her best teams, you can also expect a significant amount of damage to your bank account. Before going over a kit and battle, here's a reminder that you can strike the fear of God into your enemies by pressing E. Her technique summons Pac-Man, and he basically just eats enemies, so I think between her and Finon, we know who's more scary. In order to activate her ultimate, she needs to increase her hidden MMR. While this can be done by playing Overwatch, I'd highly recommend never touching that game ever. She gains hidden MMR in two ways. One is whenever Aha gains Punchline, and two is every time she DDoSes a TeamSpeak server. Superwolf actually has two elation skills, and the one she activates when she's not in her ult form will instantly grant her 15 hidden MMR. With one of her bonus abilities, she gains an extra 20 if Aha's punchline is 20 or more, and another 20 for a total of 40 if Aha has 40 or more punchline. This makes Yao Guang's E1 busted. For each hidden MMR she has, she gets 0.4 crit rate, and once she reaches 100% crit rate, she gains 0.8 crit damage per hidden MMR. At 60 hidden MMR points, she can ult, and that's when she gets absolutely insane. Her entire kit should have a seizure warning on it. There are enough flashes and colors in each attack she does to damage your retinas. She's entered God mode, and if we don't stop her soon, she might become strong enough to make NFTs have actual value in the real world. First off, in her ult, she deploys a zone that looks straight out of Wreck-It Ralph. Second, all of her attacks become basic attack combos that deal a lot of damage and are based off of Top Loot Box. For those of you who don't know what Top Loot Box is, it's an effect that came for free with your Superwolf that allows for one of three different attacks to happen. One is Funky Munch Bean, which gains 3 punchline. Another is called Kaboom Explosion, which restores 2 skill points. And the last one is called Big Flipping Sword. I guess God mode does not give her the ability to swear. Big Flipping Sword deals true damage to the target with the highest HP. All 3 of these attacks activate based on what you need most. For example, if you have low skill points, it prioritizes Kaboom Explosion to give you more SP. If you have high SP but low punchline, it'll prioritize Funky Munch Bean to give you punchline. And if you have solid punchline and SP, it'll use Big Flipping Sword to remind you why Superwolf was ranked #1 on Bad Lion. In her ult state, you get 3 turns total, and whenever allies spend skill points while she's enhanced, a top loot box can activate. This activates on a fixed 100% chance, but becomes 20% of the previous chance every single time it activates. For example, the first skill point spent will always trigger 1 top loot box, and every SP after that will have a fixed 20% chance to trigger, then 4%, then 0.8%, etc. This means playing Sparksy, who literally eats enough skill points to starve a country, will increase your overall top loot box triggers and increase your bonus effects and damage. After your 3 ult turns are taken, you end your enhanced state. And if you're reading her kit, I highly recommend giving up. Her basic attack description is as long as the entire Declaration of Independence, but all it says is that if you defeat a wave during her ultimate attacks, you continue using her ultimate attacks into the next one. Don't overthink it. When Superwolf's elation skill goes off while she's in God mode, it does a ton of elation damage, but also resets the fixed chance to trigger top loot box. So Yao Guang is also goated. Speaking of increasing damage, to hit rank #1 on Super Pack Craft Impact 3rd, she hacked in even more bonuses, like an extra 15% more damage dealt by her enhanced basic attacks per 60 hidden MMR she has, which stacks up to 2 times. So at 120, all of her enhanced basic attack damage and ult does 1.3 times damage, which is crazy. She also gets a free 20 hidden MMR when ulting, unlike me who seems to lose 20 elo every single time I ult. Superwolf also gets an extra 50% elation when her speed is 160 or higher, and for every 1 speed pass past 160, she gets an extra 2% elation up to a max of 100 more speed. This means you want her to be faster than the opponent's tailwind. Attack percent and stats other than crit and speed are more or less useless to her, since she turns all of her basic and skill damage into elation damage when she has certified banger, which is essentially all the time. It also means that you'll never get to see this really cool skill animation because it gets replaced with Vegas. And they also decided to give Superwolf a global passive. Oh boy, surely there will not be any repercussions to this. The global passive is a free team-wide cleanse once per wave, which is actually pretty strong since it activates instantly upon being crowd controlled. It specifically counters Kafka, which I think is really funny. The devs also named her global passive McAvoolfie, and for some reason, I get the feeling they don't know what happened to John McAfee. As mentioned before, Superwolf wants really specific stats, so I'll go over her build next, but first, make sure you level everything except her skill. I mean, you can level her skill if you want, but if you see it, it's kind of an omen. It's refreshing to finally get our first 5-star imaginary woman. No, not you. And even more refreshing that she's easy to build, at least conceptually. Trying to get these stats will make you wish you had a day job instead. In case you skipped it, Superwolf only wants speed and crit stats, and since she's an elation character, I recommend giving her the ever-glorious Magical Girl set, which increases crit damage on the 2 set and gives defense ignore to elation damage on the 4 set. There are very few things that affect elation damage, so a set like this is really beneficial to her. As for her planar ornaments, you definitely want Punk Lord Stage 0, which is an 8% elation increase and an additional crit damage buff for hitting high elation. You definitely want her to be pretty fast for the elation buff in her passive, because once you hit 80% elation, you get up to 32% crit damage. For your main stats, you'll want a crit rate or damage chest, speed boots, and any stats for your orb and rope, but I recommend HP just for survivability, and since attack percent basically doesn't matter at all. Your goal should be to get at least 171 speed, because that'll put you at 72% elation without set bonuses, and with your planar set, you'll end up at 80% elation for the crit bonus. Other than that, you're just trying to get close to 100% crit rate to make sure that you cap it in her ult, and as much crit damage as you can. If you're playing Yao Guang with her signature light cone, make sure not to pass 90% crit rate, since she'll give you 10% crit rate for free. There's not really many alternatives for her build since elation is kinda new, but in a worst case scenario, you could give her 2-piece speed sets or crit sets. Overall though, I just wouldn't really recommend it. Here is a summary of her best build for those of you whose attention span has been completely rotted by Sparksy. It is the year 2026, and that means with every new character, you have 3 light cones to choose from. Elation is sort of in that weird spot Remembrance was for a while, where there wasn't a ton of light cones and people felt pressured to pull for signatures. And don't get me wrong, Welcome to the Cosmic City is crazy good on Superwolf, because it gives her 18% speed, which can translate to 36% elation if you have crazy stats already. But it also gives you 20% defense ignore on elation damage and 20 punchline when she ults herself. But with that said, there's actually a really solid free-to-play craftable light cone called Mushy Shroomies Adventures, and yeah, I don't really know what's going on there either. It increases your elation by 20% at max superimposition, and it also increases elation damage taken by enemies by 10% when you use your elation skill. Overall, it gives a lot of value for something that you can just craft, and I highly recommend it if you don't have her signature, or if you're not going for the Battle Pass elation light cone, which is her second best one at S5. That's honestly all I can recommend for light cones, because the new free one we're getting for the anniversary is kinda mid on her, and the Herta Shop light cone is basically tailor-made for Elation Trailblazer. But if you do want a visual, here's a comparison of light cone damage, and I'll let you look at it yourself. So far, Plan Arcadia has been absolutely ridiculous. We've just gotten a character who attacks with Silverwing NEX's move from Honkai Impact 3rd, Bomb-Ombs from Mario, a Diamond Sword from Minecraft, and Pac-Man from, well, Pac-Man. And to her right, you have a TikTok dancer with multiple personalities, a scared child who's haunted by a friendly ghost, and a Chinese woman. And yes, this is her best team. Now, overall, Superwolf benefits a lot from every single character in here, with the exception of Ho-Ho, but even indirectly, she does benefit from Ho-Ho. So here's why. First off, Yao Guang is able to instantly give Silverwolf an additional 20 hidden MMR from her passive that gives her 20 when she activates her elation skill, and because Yao Guang is able to proc her elation skill when she's out of her her ultimate, you're able to instantly get an additional 15 just from the cast of the elation skill, so a total of 35 hidden MMR right off the bat. If you have E1 Yao Guang, you can get an instant 55 by giving 40 punchline, thus turning it into hidden MMR right at the start of battle, but not everyone has E1 Yao Guang, so we're just running it at E0. Now, if you're wondering, Elation Trailblazer does do the same thing for Super Wolf, however, you won't get the benefit of triggering every single character's elation skills. You're just going to trigger Super Wolf's, which is going to result in lower punchline overall, but you do get the effect of it being 20 punchline, so you will still get a lot of hidden MMR in Super Wolf. That, alongside Yao Guang's Res Pen, just makes Yao Guang a better pick, but Elation Trailblazer is a good budget option. Now, Sparksy is exceptionally good because not only is her damage fantastic, but she also probably eats more skill points than Snorlax eats food. She's able to constantly proc top loot box, which is going to help Super Wolf dish out even more damage and gain the beneficial effects like extra skill points back, extra punchline, and of course, true damage against the boss. And Huohuo is exceptionally useful here because she's able to help get Sparksy and Yao Guang's ults out even faster. Now, if you don't have Sparksy or Yao Guang, you can substitute either one of them for Elation Trailblazer, but this team does feel the best at the moment as it is the 3 premium Elation characters that are in the game. Since Super Wolf is the anniversary character, it is likely that she will get even more teammates that work with her really well, but as of right now, this is the best situation. Now, this is also an option if you want to just try and feed as many Elation skills to Super Wolf as you can, and as mentioned before, you can also put Sparksy in this team. Now, if you need to go even more budget, you can also use Welt as well, and he will be a great support for your damage. However, the damage will be significantly fallen off from your best in slot potential. If you're looking for other supports to use, you can also use Sparkle for the action forward crit damage, crit rate with her signature light cone, and SP, which should put more emphasis on the punchline top loot box and the true damage one. And then Cypher is just kind of a good all-around support, and Asta is actually a sleeper hit. This character hasn't been good in a very long time, but because she can apply 50 speed to your entire team, that is 100% elation to Silverwolf if you're already past 160 speed. So whenever Asta's ult is up, Silverwolf is going to do significantly more elation damage. In addition to that, if you are a free-to-play player and you do happen to have Ruan Mei, her Res Pen can also be somewhat valuable to Superwolf. But other than these guys, the only other recommendations I could make would be the regular Silverwolf or Tribi, who also has a Res Pen effect. Everything else is just kind of mediocre, and overall you do want to make sure that you have at least one other Elation character in this team, otherwise you're pretty much cooked. Elation is kind of an exclusive club right now, and it's not my favorite thing, but I will say when you play the team the right way with the right characters, this team just works and it is a ton of fun. But not as fun as if you spend $10,000 to get her completely maxed out. Since the top-up menus are resetting, it looks like a lot of us will be getting EIDOLONS for Superwolf. Trust me, she doesn't need them at all, but what if you made her even cooler? I'm an advocate for healthy spending, so I'm gonna lay out her power level with EIDOLONS and let you decide. First off, E1 increases enemy damage taken inside her zone from her ultimate, and when she leaves her ult state, she keeps 20% of the hidden MMR, so it helps her enter and re-enter her ult state even quicker. E2 is a feature, not a bug. Good one, Hoyo. All buffs on Superwolf get extended by a turn after entering her ult state, and once she reaches 120 hidden MMR, she takes an extra turn. Mathematically, it works out to something like 2 extra turns from 120 and 240 hidden MMR. In addition to that, every time her turn comes around, she gets an extra swing, so a total of 4 attacks per turn instead of 3. E2 is pretty crazy and adds a lot of power to her kit. E3 is a skill, basic attack and elation skill level up. E4 is basically a huge increase to her enhanced state elation skill because it takes into account 5 times the punchline. E5 is an ult, talent, and elation skill level up, and lastly, E6 turns her into Sung Jin Woo. At E6, her elation damage dealt from enhanced basic attacks just increases by 50% flat, which has its own term for some reason, I'm not really sure why, but it's 1.5x her damage, which is crazy. But that's not all, because at E6, she's decided to use her old Silverwolf kit too, where she'll implant all enemies with all weaknesses, all base res reduction, and then then, well, she balls. Her E6 is a massive damage increase, and if you don't believe me, you can look at this totally real chart. But between S1 and E1, I definitely recommend S1 since it'll cost less pulls to get, and ultimately the difference in damage between E1 and S1 is pretty dang close. If you're going for E2 though, you might as well go all the way, no balls. Oh yeah, and here's a fake chart, don't pay attention to this one. Plan Arcadia is probably one of the strangest expansions I've seen in a game, but it's also the most at home I felt in HSR in a long time. Once again, we get to experience joy, whimsy, and my personal favorite, 1000% brain rot. But I highly recommend not letting this game rot your brain into swiping though. After all, I for sure will not be swiping on any copies of this character. Nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna spend a single dime. Yep.